Worry is like heavy baggage that we carry everywhere. But does this baggage really belong to us? Or are we trying to control the uncontrollable while our soul wears away in silence? Billy Graham said that anxiety is the shadow of doubt when we forget who is in control. And perhaps today that shadow has surrounded you more than ever. You wake up and before you even open your eyes, you feel the weight. Bills to pay, difficult decisions, fear of the future, fear of failure. It seems like no one sees it, but you are fighting an invisible war. And this war is not just emotional, it is spiritual. And here is where Billy Graham's words come alive. Surrendering to God is not weakness, it is active faith. Why do we insist on rowing against the current when we can simply trust in the river that God has prepared? How many times have you exhausted yourself trying to solve everything with your own strength? The truth is that God never asked you to carry this baggage alone. He calls you to a deep rest, a place of peace where the mind is quiet and the heart beats with hope again. Maybe you're listening to this and thinking, but how do I let go of this weight? The answer begins with a step of faith, with an act of trust, because it's not just about stopping worrying. It's about learning to rest in God. And this is where the journey of transformation begins. When you decide to listen to this message until the end. If this word is already speaking to you, write in the comments, I trust in God. Let's continue. If this message has touched your heart so far, then don't keep this pain to yourself. Write yours in the comments right now. Prayer request. Tell us honestly what is eating at you inside. We will pray for you together. Here, in this space, you are not alone. Each comment is a voice raised in faith, and we believe in the power of prayer in unity, as Billy Graham taught. Prayer is the greatest power God has placed in our hands. No matter what your struggle is, anxiety, fear, loneliness, doubts, family, or spiritual crises, there is a place where all this can be delivered, at the feet of Jesus. And when you share your pain, you allow others to join you in crying out. And this opens a powerful gap for God to manifest Himself. Comment now, pray for me, or write whatever is on your heart. Every word will be read and brought before God in faith. Take advantage of this moment and leave your like, because this helps this message reach other lives that also need comfort and deliverance. If you haven't signed up yet, click the subscribe button now, not to follow a channel, but to walk together on a journey of faith, hope, and inner healing. Because, as Billy Graham said, God still speaks, still saves, still heals and still transforms, and He wants to do that for you today. Now take a deep breath, open your heart, and stay with me. What you're about to hear next could change the way you face everything that's bothering you. Remember when you were a child and trusted your parents to take care of everything? You didn't worry about what you would eat, where you would sleep, or how the bills would be paid. That trust was natural. You simply believed that everything would be okay because someone bigger was taking care of you. Billy Graham constantly reminded us of this kind of faith, a faith that rests, that trusts without understanding, that surrenders control to a God who never fails. When he talked about trust, he wasn't talking about something abstract. He was talking about something profound, simple, and powerful. He taught us that trusting God is like being a child again before your Heavenly Father. It's recognizing that we don't have all the answers, but we know who does. And maybe today you are in desperate need of this kind of rest. Maybe adulthood has hardened you, disappointments have closed your heart, and fear of tomorrow is draining your strength. You wake up with a tight chest, go to bed with a heavy head, and are emotionally tired, even without making any physical effort. This is called emotional burden, and it comes when we try to be strong all the time, when we try to hold everything in our own hands. But that is not the life God intended for you. He never intended for you to carry the world on your shoulders. On the contrary, the word says, cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you. And Billy Graham reaffirmed this truth with passion. God is never far away. He is always waiting for you to surrender your worries. This surrender is what changes everything. When you let go of control, when you stop trying to figure it all out, you make room for God to start working. But that takes faith. It takes courage to say, I can't do it alone anymore. And that's not a sign of weakness. It's the first step toward experiencing a new life. Unshakable faith. A faith that sustains, that guides, that heals. And yes, God heals, not just the body, but especially the soul. He heals memories. He heals traumas. He heals the anxiety that eats away at us. Billy Graham said that the greatest miracle is not physical healing, but the transformation of the heart. And that transformation begins when you allow God to be God. When you trust without seeing. When you say, Father, I don't understand what's happening, but I choose to trust. And here's the secret. Trust in God is not based on what we see, but on what we believe. Just as a child doesn't need to understand how his father is going to solve things, you don't need to know the details of God's plan either. You just need to believe that He has a plan. And that plan is bigger, better, and tailor-made for you. How many times have you tried to solve everything on your own and ended up even more tired? How many times have you tried to predict the future, anticipate problems, control all the variables, and still found yourself frustrated, anxious, with no way out? This happens because we were not created to live in fear. We were created to walk with God, side by side, step by step. Billy Graham said that anxiety is the result of a heart that tries to live away from the presence of God. And the further you distance yourself, the heavier life becomes. But today, now, in this moment, you can make a different decision to come back. Back to peace. Back to the simplicity of faith. Back to that place where you don't have to have all the answers. Where you can just rest knowing that God is in control. This doesn't mean that all your problems will disappear overnight. It means that you won't face them alone. It means that there is a spiritual force working on your behalf. It means that, even when everything around you says it's the end, God whispers, it's not over yet. I'm with you. And it is in this trust that true freedom happens. When you understand that your life is in the hands of a sovereign God, you stop despairing over every piece of bad news, every unforeseen event, every threat that arises. You begin to realize that there is an invisible movement, a constant presence, a love that never fails. Billy Graham always reinforced this. You may not understand it now, but one day you will look back and see that God was there all along. And maybe, just maybe, this is the moment when you will begin to see this clearly. So, if you've made it this far, don't leave in silence. Use the comments as an altar. Write down your prayer, your request, your pain. Put there the words you couldn't say to anyone. Maybe what you need to write is, I can't stand being alone anymore. Or maybe just, Lord, I trust in you. Whatever your delivery, it will be heard. Faith in God is taking the first step, not because you trust your abilities, but because you trust that the bridge is solid. This phrase is more than a pretty metaphor. It is a divine summons. How many times have you found yourself standing before the abyss of the unknown? Your heart sinking, wishing for reassurance before you could move forward. How many times have you been paralyzed because you couldn't see the other side? That's exactly where true faith comes in. Billy Graham said, faith begins where understanding ends, and perhaps this is the greatest challenge of the Christian walk. To continue walking even when your eyes cannot see, when the ground seems fragile and when everything inside you screams to turn back. But the truth is that behind the fear, behind the uncertainty, there is a God building a solid bridge. Even if right now all you see is the abyss, and that bridge is held together by God's faithfulness, by His unwavering love, by the promise that He will not abandon those who wait for Him. That's why faith is not a passing feeling, not an emotion motivated by circumstances. Faith is a decision. It's a leap you take, believing that even if you fall, God's hands will be there to hold you. This is what makes the spiritual life a courageous journey. This is what Billy Graham called radical trust, the kind of trust that leaps into the unknown, because you know whom you have believed. And maybe that's what you need today. Not more certainties, not more plans or predictions, but the courage to take a step. Spiritual life doesn't advance with human guarantees. It moves with trust in God. You may not have the complete map, but you have the guide. And He never misses the path. It may seem scary at first, like crossing a bridge in the fog. You can't see the end, you can't hear applause, you don't feel secure on your feet. But deep down, you know that God is saying, "Come, I'm here." And this call is not for those who have everything figured out. It's for those who are tired of trying to figure it out on their own. Billy Graham reminded us that the greatest miracles happen in the realm of insecurity, when you take risks, trusting that God will honor each step of faith. And that's when something inside you begins to change. Anxiety loses its strength, fear is silenced, and your soul begins to breathe. You stop being a slave to doubt and human logic, and become someone who walks by faith, a faith that sustains, guides, and protects. It's not about having all the answers, it's about trusting in those who do. Maybe you are facing an important decision right now. Maybe it is a crisis in your home, a financial problem, an emotional battle that has been draining you for years, and you look ahead and see no way out. But God is building a bridge, and you will only discover it when you dare to walk. It is not about overcoming with your own strength, but about trusting that the God who calls you has already prepared the way. You do not need to understand everything. You just need to obey. Like a child who holds tightly to his father's hand as he crosses a busy street. He does not know how many cars are coming, nor when is the best time to cross, but he trusts that the hand that guides him knows what he is doing. It's that kind of faith that changes everything. The faith you choose to trust even when logic says it doesn't make sense. And don't think this is easy. It's a daily struggle against your emotions, against the desire to control everything, against the urge to return to your comfort zone. But it is this faith that unlocks miracles, that opens invisible doors, that brings answers that seemed impossible. Billy Graham taught that faith takes us where our feet could never go alone. And if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is ready for this next step, and don't think you need to be strong to take this leap. Often, the most important step is taken amid tears, amid tiredness, amid doubt. The bridge doesn't rest on your strength. It rests on God's promise. And He promised to be with you in every detail, in every detour, in every silence. Even when you feel nothing, He continues to be everything. That's why today is an invitation, a personal call from God to your heart. Stop trying to walk alone. Trust the bridge I built for you. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. These words from Jesus in Matthew 11:28 are not just an invitation, they are a shelter. They reach across time and come to you right now, exactly as you are, tired, exhausted, trying to look strong on the outside, while inside your world seems to be falling apart. This promise is not a temporary relief. It is not a fancy phrase to memorize a verse. It is an open door, an opportunity to release the weight that is crushing your soul. Billy Graham said that Christ's greatest miracle was not healing bodies, but relieving broken hearts that could no longer continue fighting alone. And maybe that's the case for you today. Have you ever felt on edge, about to cry and no one would notice? Ever wished for a break from the pressure, the constant fear, the feeling that something bad is going to happen at any moment? There's a name for it: tiredness of the soul. And this kind of tiredness is not cured by sleep, nor by holidays, nor by passing distractions. It is only cured when you find true rest in God. When you hear that soft and powerful voice of Jesus saying, "Come to me," and even without strength, you decide to take that step. It is not a physical step. It is a step of surrender. A step of faith. A step towards spiritual healing. Billy Graham preached for decades about this kind of rest, about inner peace that is independent of circumstances. He used to say that the world offers anesthesia, but only Jesus offers healing. And there is no truer phrase. Because while the world says be strong, Jesus says be sincere. While the world says hang in there, He says, let me hold you up. That is not religion. That is a relationship with a God who sees what no one else sees, who understands what even you cannot explain, who knows your most hidden pains and is ready to hold you before everything falls apart. And I know you've heard this before. You've tried to deliver, you've prayed, you've asked, and maybe you think God didn't hear you. But listen carefully, he never stopped listening. But sometimes he waits for us to let go completely, to stop fighting the current, to give up control. Because it is in that moment of surrender that the miracle begins. When you say, "God, I don't know what else to do," he says, "Now you are ready to let me do it." And then everything changes. Not because the problems magically disappear, but because the peace that surpasses all understanding begins to take hold of your heart. This peace does not come from what is happening around you. It is born from who is living within you. And if today what lives there is anguish, fear, insecurity, know that God is ready to exchange this weight for the lightness of the Spirit. He wants to make his home in you. He wants your chest to stop being a battlefield and return to being a garden of rest. Jesus does not call you to a religion full of rules. He calls you truerest in him, to be embraced by a love that does not charge but heals. A love that does not demand but transforms. A love that does not push you to the ground but lifts you up with tenderness. How many times have you tried to hold it all together on your own? How many times have you pretended to be okay so as not to worry others when inside you were broken into 1,000 pieces? That is not weakness. That is exhaustion. And there is no shame in admitting it. Billy Graham said that the greatest sign of spiritual strength is recognizing when we need divine help. And that help is here, right now. You don't need fancy words or rituals or perfection. You just need sincerity. You just need to look up and say, "Lord, I can't take it anymore. I need your rest." And it doesn't matter how long you've been in this fight. It doesn't matter how many times you've fallen or how many times you thought about giving up. What matters is that Jesus is still saying, "Come to me." Even today, he is reaching out in the midst of your storm. And yes, he sees the waves. He feels the wind. He hears the thunder of your despair. But even so, with eyes full of love, he calls you closer. Because in the midst of the storm, what you need most is not a stronger boat, but a real presence. And this presence is available, accessible, waiting for your surrender. So if you feel like this word is for you, if something inside you is being touched while you hear this, don't ignore it. Open your mouth or write what's in your heart. Use the comments as a meeting point between your weary soul and the heart of God. You can write, "Jesus, I need your rest," or even, "I'm tired, help me, Lord." It doesn't matter how you say it. It matters that you say it. Because every comment that is born of pain is a cry that God receives as a prayer. If you wish, share your burden. Leave your prayer request. Let's walk together in this healing process because no one is made to bear everything alone. Leave your like if this message is speaking to you. Subscribe to the channel to no longer walk this journey of faith alone. And comment with faith, even if it's just a word. God knows the cry hidden behind the silence, and there's still so much more he wants to say to you. Gratitude not only changes our perspective, it also reminds us that God is at work. Sometimes we are so focused on what we lack, so caught up in anxiety, comparison, pain, and pressure, that we completely forget about the blessings that already surround us. A troubled heart becomes blind to God's care that is present in every detail, even the things we consider too small to notice. But when the Holy Spirit calls us back to gratitude, something powerful happens within us. It's not just an emotional exercise, it's a battle won on the field of faith. Billy Graham said, "Gratitude is visible evidence of active faith," and how this truth needs to be rescued in our days. Maybe you are going through a moment of darkness, when everything seems meaningless. Maybe you have been praying for a long time without answers. And in this silence, your heart closes, your mind becomes a battlefield, and you begin to doubt even the presence of God. But it is precisely in this moment that gratitude needs to be raised like a flag. Because when you choose to give thanks, even without seeing, even without understanding, even in the midst of pain, you are saying, "Lord, I still believe. I still know that you are here." And this attitude is not emotional, it is spiritual. Gratitude is a weapon that defeats discouragement, that silences murmuring, that makes hell tremble. Because when you give thanks, you take your eyes off the problem and fix them on God's faithfulness. Billy Graham used to remember that faith begins to blossom when gratitude takes the place of complaint. And that's why, even in difficult times, we must remember what He has already done. Do you remember the times when you thought you couldn't handle it? And you did. Do you remember the doors that seemed closed and they opened? Do you remember the nights when you cried in silence and still woke up standing tall? That's grace. That's the hand of God. That's the faithfulness that remains even when everything else changes. And when you start listing these things, giving thanks for them, something changes inside. The weight lifts, the mind calms, the faith grows stronger. Gratitude also has the power to redefine the now. It takes your eyes off what hasn't happened yet and brings your heart back to what God is already doing. Even if your eyes can't see it, gratitude reminds you, God is working. He is not indifferent. He is not silent out of absence, but out of strategy. He is molding your heart, preparing the way, treating areas you have never even imagined. And when you give thanks, you align yourself with His movement. You enter the rhythm of heaven, not as one who begs, but as one who trusts. Not as one who doubts, but as one who rests. How many times have we found ourselves saying, God, I just want an answer, when in fact what He expects to hear is, Lord, thank you, because even without seeing it, I know that you are doing it. This is the faith that touches heaven. The faith that does not require evidence to continue believing. The faith that sustains, that steadies your feet, that lifts your tired arms. And yes, you can live like this. You can walk with gratitude even in the middle of the desert, because those who walk with gratitude carry within themselves the certainty that the promise stands, even if the current landscape says otherwise. Billy Graham always emphasized that the true worshiper is the one who continues to praise, even when the miracle has not yet arrived. And praise here does not necessarily mean singing. Praise means recognizing God's sovereignty, God's care, God's goodness, even when the soul cries. That is why gratitude is not light. It is heavy. It requires surrender. It requires humility. Because giving thanks in good times is easy, but giving thanks in difficult times is a sign that faith overcame fear. Maybe today you need to stop for a moment and breathe. Close your eyes and remember. Review everything that God has already delivered you from. All the times He protected you without you even knowing. All the deliverances that you didn't see. All the blessings that you received and quickly forgot. When gratitude takes over our hearts, it even changes our prayers. It makes us stop complaining and start declaring. It makes us move from God, why is this happening to me? To God, what do you want to teach me with this? And this change in attitude is what makes us mature spiritually. Gratitude also opens doors. Did you know that? In several places in Scripture, we see that God moved in power when someone chose to give thanks even though he didn't see the promise. Jesus gave thanks before He multiplied the loaves. Paul and Silas sang in prison, and the chains broke. Job, in the midst of loss, declared, "The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." This is not theory, it is spiritual practice. And perhaps you are in an invisible prison right now, bound by anxiety, by fear, by the weight of unfulfilled expectations. But if you will lift up a prayer of gratitude right now, if you will choose to say thank you, even with tears in your eyes, the sky will move for you. If you felt the voice of God in this video, if something inside you was touched, healed, or awakened, don't leave here in silence. This wasn't just content, it was an encounter. Subscribe to the channel now to continue this journey of faith, healing, and transformation every day. Here, you will never walk alone. If you made it to the end, it means that God spoke to you in a profound way. So write in the comments with faith and sincerity, "I heard the voice of God." This simple act could be the start of something new in your life, and it could also touch someone reading this who needs hope. And if this message made sense to you, leave your like right now. This helps this video reach other lives that also need a hug from God. Don't forget, the next video is already appearing on the screen, and it may be exactly what you need to hear today. Stay with us. God still has more to say to you.